Welcome to the second season of Trophy Moments and a Few Firsts with me, Keith Baldwin. Sponsored by Spikes Trophies, where you can reach Spikes at gospikes.com or one of the 3 locations in the Delaware Valley. Well, I'm honored to have Melinda Emerson here as my guest today. Melinda is the small biz lady, the small biz lady. She's a small business expert, author, consultant, international keynote speaker, podcaster, and educator. All that. And we've got to give her a little bit of a plug. She's got 2 books, Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months, and then Fix Your Business, based on small business. How did you get to be the small biz lady?
Oh man, that's a story.
Well, give me a story. That's why we're here.
So first of all, let me just say, I am a very accidental business coach. I never set out to be a business expert or even write books. How it all happened was I used to get these calls from my friends that went something like this. Girl, I want to be like you. I want to quit my job today. Tell me the secret. Tell me what I got to do. And I'd be like, You can't do that. You can't quit your job. You love Prada. Like you can't, like you got expensive taste. You like that this whole entrepreneurship thing is not designed for people who live at your level of lifestyle. But I kept getting these calls and so I wrote this little ebook.
What were you doing at the time?
I was running my business. So I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. When I was I used to be a television producer at Channel 6 and Channel 10. And when I was 26 years old, I left the business and started my company in the basement of my house. I had a laptop, a fax machine, and a dream, basically. So
you knew the hard work.
Oh, I did, which is why I was like, no, you don't want to do this. But then I wrote this ebook. So my first company was Quintessence Group, which we still have. And it's a marketing consulting firm that specializes in working with corporations that target small businesses. So I work with very large companies like Amazon, like FedEx, like Verizon, like Google, HP, Adobe. Those are my clients. But I also have a secondary company called Small Biz Lady Enterprises, which is our education and training company. And we specialize in training women entrepreneurs specifically, but we have tons and tons of information. We have been training entrepreneurs for the last 15 years. So how I became the small biz lady, though, was because I wrote my book. My first book was Become Your Own Boss in 12 Months. And I worked on this book all of 2007 and early 2008. And it was due to my publisher September 1st, 2008. And I turned my book in on time because I have a journalism degree from Virginia Tech. So, of course, I knew how to write a book on time. So I turn it in, and then the market crashes about 14 days later. So I think it was like September 14th when the market crashed. And my publisher called me up and said, listen, thank you so much for being a first-time author that actually turned your book in on time. But listen, so many people are losing their jobs right now. We don't think anyone is thinking about entrepreneurship. So we're going to shelf your book for 18 months, and we're going to release your book in March of 2010. My book was supposed to come out at the top of 2009. And so they shelved my book, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And my husband at the time had just gotten laid off from his full-time job, so it wasn't like I had an extra $10,000 to buy my book back from these people. So I basically had to wait. And a friend of mine in the National Speakers Association, she said to me, listen, if I were you, I would start publicizing that book like it was coming out anyway. Matter of fact, you might want to figure out this new social media stuff everybody's been talking about. So we're talking about 2008. Twitter was 1 year old. So that's like, it was the nascent time of social media. And so I was just like, oh my gosh. And then another friend of mine said, listen, Bill Gates said if he had $5 left in the world, he would spend $250 on PR. So if I were you, I'd take your little $10 and go out here and get you some help, So I hired a woman, her name is Kathy Larkin, And she knew as much as anybody knew about social media back then, which was this much, but she knew more than me. So I hired her. I said, look, here's my sad story. I wrote this book. The publisher won't release it. They told me I should start publicizing it anyway. Do you have any ideas? And she said, oh my God, wait a minute. You mean to tell me we have 18 months to build your author platform?
So she was excited.
She was like,
because she never gets that.
She was like, this is a gift. And I was just like, it does not feel like a gift. She said, no, it's a gift. Trust me, trust me. And she said, I know what we're going to do. And I said, well, what are we going to do? And she said, we're going to go out on Twitter and build your brand. And I remember saying to her, what is Twitter? Like I literally, I didn't know what it was. I did not know what it was. And she said, don't worry. We're going to get you a Twitter account and I'll teach you how to use Twitter. I was like, okay, great. So the day came for me to go to twitter.com and get my account. So I'm on the phone with her. I go to twitter.com. I put in Melinda Emerson and I get this polite notice back. This name is already taken. And I was like,
you're crushed.
Come on.
You're crushed.
Come on. Like, first of all, I've probably met, I don't know, 5, 6 other Melindas that are older than me my entire life. Like my name is not that common. And certainly Melinda Emerson together, like, come on, are you serious? So thanks to Facebook, I found out that there are 7 other Melinda Emerson. But I own melindaemerson.com and I'm the famous Melinda Emerson. So they all know who I am. But in that moment, we had to come up with a nickname. And so I was like, a nickname? I've never been called anything but my name. Like, I didn't grow up with a nickname in my family. I'm not Bunky or something, you know what I mean? So
you're always Melinda.
I've always been Melinda. So she said, no, let's come up with a nickname for you. And I said, a nickname? You mean like Mindy or Melly Mel or something, you know? And she said, no, fool, you're not a rapper. I'm not going to give you a name like that. I was like, okay, all right, what are we going to do? And so she said, how about we come up with a name that tells people who you are and what you do? And that was the day I became Small Biz Lady.
Really?
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that Forbes named you the #1 woman for entrepreneurship to follow.
Yeah.
On Twitter.
Yeah.
On Twitter.
On Twitter, right?
Which is now X.
Yeah.
Do you still do a lot on
We
X?
do. It's still my biggest platform. We have about 300,000 followers on Twitter still. Yeah.
And how often do you publish there?
Oh, we publish
daily?
content.
Weekly?
Not daily, probably 3 times a week, though.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because we publish 2 blog posts a week and a podcast. So those things are pushed out through our entire social media footprint every week.
And you also have classes or?
Oh, yeah. So I have an online school, Small Biz Lady University, and we have a brand new monthly membership site.
Which is starting when?
It's going to start by July 1st. So it's called Small Biz Lady Academy, and it is our membership site and community just for women entrepreneurs. And it's a global community. So all of our content is available in English and Spanish. We have coaches that people can get support from, but mainly it's a place where we want to help entrepreneurial women build a happy life, get the knowledge they need, and create a network. So anything they want, they should be able to buy from the other members in Small Biz Lady Academy.
See, off Mike, we were talking about where you're traveling next year.
Yeah.
And you mentioned to me that the export of entrepreneurship, women entrepreneurship, is
it's big. Apparently, one of the top things that our nation wants to export is entrepreneurship education for women. And the State Department reached out to me, and they're sending me to Cambodia in September to train women entrepreneurs in Cambodia. And I'm so excited about it.
Did you ever think, when you first started, with the person that you had put you on Twitter for the first time, that you came up with your nickname, that you'd ever be teaching around the world?
No. I mean, listen, I never thought I would do much beyond writing this book, to be very honest with you. I mean, I wrote this book because it was the book I had never read. And I poured every hard-learned lesson I ever learned in those days in the book. And then I told the stories of other entrepreneurs that I knew. And I had no idea that because I was so honest in the book and because I wasn't the hero at the end of every story, that book would resonate. This book is in its third edition with Simon & Schuster. It's been sold in multiple languages around the world, over 100,000 copies. And you have to understand, for a nonfiction business book,
Yeah, that's a lot.
look, the average book is like 4,000 copies.
Yep.
And stays in print 2 or 3 years, maybe. I mean, so for us to have a book that has resonated with people all over the world, it's just incredible, because it was always on my bucket list. Like when I was a kid in school,
That you always
I wanted
wanted to write a book.
I always wanted to write a book, and never did I think I would write a book that would be a classic, like a business classic. Like I never could have even
How
imagined.
long did it take
that.
you to write it?
Oh, about 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I started and stopped, and then I frankly got a little bit of imposter syndrome, because when I first wrote this book, I had not even grossed $1 million in revenue yet. So there were people that were like, "Well, you haven't grossed $1 million in revenue. Like, who's going to listen to you?" You know, kind of. I mean, and then I was playing that loop in my head, which was so damaging, because I think about all of the people I have saved, helped, people who told me that after they read this book, they had the courage to leave their full-time job and start a business. And I almost didn't write it because I let people convince me I wasn't good enough to write it. And that's a dangerous,
There's a message
dangerous
there,
thing. Oh,
right?
yeah.
For my audience, don't listen to others.
No,
Look in the mirror and believe in yourself.
absolutely. Your gift will make room for you.
Yes.
I mean, by writing this book, by promoting myself through social media, I built an entire other line of business for myself. Corporations started calling me, asking me, would I come and assist them, teaching their teams how to use social media more effectively. It completely boosted my other business. And this was like a side thing I was doing just because I wanted to just get it out. It was like I knew that I would have run my business better if I had had better advice. But back then, you got to realize I started my business in '99. There was nobody in mainstream media talking about small business. You had maybe like Susie Orman, Gene Chaskey was talking about, personal finance and 401ks. But there was nobody that said, hey, if you think you've got a big idea, I've got the roadmap to help you become a big success. There was no one.
So what's some of the tips as a small business lady for a small business person trying to get into start their own small business?
Well, the first thing you've got to do is get really clear about what you want and why, because it's hard to start a business. Sometimes you might just need to get another job because you got a jerk boss, right? But the second thing you've got to figure out is how you're going to pay for it, because sadly, banks do not loan money to start up businesses. So the money to start your business.
Oh, it's easy to start a business, right?
Oh no, let me tell you, the money's got to come from your right or your left pocket. People who have savings have options, right? So one of the things that was really beneficial for me is I bought a house when I was 25. So I always had collateral. I always had some place to pull equity from, cash if I needed it, and that really set me on a path to success long term in my business. But I think the third thing you've got to figure out is, what skills do you have versus what skills do you need to run this particular kind of business? I'm a big fan of people working part-time for a business like the one they want to start, so that they can get real clear about, is running a restaurant for you? Is running a daycare center for you? If you don't like kids, don't have any, probably daycare center might not be awesome for you. But I've seen people do it. Oh, I heard these businesses make a lot of money. I'm going to go start a Rita's Water Ice. And then they realize their employees are all teenagers and they hate teenagers.
Is it about the money or the love of the business?
You need both, right? You have to have passion, but you've got to have a passion that has a profit center to it. People always would tell, I'm passionate about music. Well, so am I, but I'm not auditioning for The Voice, right? So you have to be really clear that there is a paying customer out here. And that actually brings me to number 4. So number 4 is the marketing. Who is your paying customer? A lot of times I see brand new entrepreneurs, they get their URL, they get their logo, they start thinking about their invitations to their grand opening event. And if they're on their life could not tell you who their paying customer is, who their niche is, and what their niche is. And that is dangerous. It's too much money for you to risk not doing real research, not understanding who that customer profile is, not understanding not only what they want, but what is holding them back? What are their aspirational goals? Why are they going to buy from you versus the competitor? Who are your competitors, right? You got to do the research.
You got to do the work
to make sure that there's a paying customer out here, because people buy things they want, not necessarily things they need. So you got to be clear that you got something that people need. There's some pain you are solving.
And somewhere I read that 50% of the businesses fail within 5 years.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely true. 90% fail within 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a high number. I mean, there's another 20% that are out of here in the year one.
Yeah.
But people that last, if they get past the 5-year mark, that's like that 7-year mark in marriage, right? I mean, it's like you get past 5 years, you might know what you're doing.
You may actually make it.
You might. But there's a lot of upfront work involved, and you really do need a business plan. So after you figure out who that customer is, you need to write your plan down, because it's 60% more likely to happen if you take the time to write it down. And then the last thing is, I believe in people starting businesses as side hustles first. I don't believe in quitting a job to start a business, unless you're starting a business that's a direct competitor to your employer, right? Obviously, you got to leave. But most people are starting businesses that have nothing to do with their day job. And you can do that on your evenings and your weekends. So
to get the experience.
Absolutely.
And to learn.
And to figure out what you're doing.
Yes.
Like, what is the right price point
you
should actually be charging?
What are my costs?
Right. You got to figure some stuff out. Who are your suppliers? Like, you got to get through some seasons before you cut them paychecks off, because when you cut those off, they're off, and the health insurance goes with them.
And there's a lot of expense in starting a new business, which you said.
There are. You need at least $25,000 to start a business, because you got to buy a website, you got to buy a computer, you're going to have to get some business cards. You're going to have to go to some trade shows. You're going to have to join an industry association to learn.
Yes.
So you need money.
So you're this small business lady. You've written books. Now you're out, you're speaking, and you're teaching. Mm-hmm. Where do you teach and where do you speak?
Oh, gosh. I speak at conferences around the country and around the world. I've had the opportunity to speak at women's business conferences, just regular business conferences. I talk to sometimes employee groups about personal branding. But my favorite group of people is to talk to a group of entrepreneurs. Sometimes I'm invited to speak to franchisee groups that have invested. There's over 4,000 franchise concepts in the United States. So there's lots of different types of organizations and businesses. Sometimes I get invited to churches, actually, to speak for women's ministries and things like that. Because one of the things that I'm actually famous for is every year on Martin Luther King Day, I publish the 10 Bible verses every small business owner needs. And believe it or not, they are the most popular content I have ever published. And I've done 14 of them.
What's the first one, the second, or I don't know if you want to give me all 10.
Oh, gosh. I do 10 every year. So I would have to give you 120.
So do you have one?
Well, sure. Isaiah 43:19. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Can you not see it? Right? I will create streams in dry land, and I think I'm screwing up the last part of it. But anyway, that's my absolutely favorite Bible verse, because I think that speaks to entrepreneurship more than anything. I am doing a new thing, saith the Lord. Yeah.
So the topic of our podcast here is what's your trophy moment? So you've accomplished a lot. You've written books, you've traveled, you've been recognized. What's your trophy moment in your life?
I would have to say there's two. Obviously, the birth of my son is absolutely a trophy moment. I was on bed rest. It was a high-risk pregnancy. I was scared to death. And when he got here, he was perfect. And that was such a relief for my husband and I. But I will also say that my biggest trophy moment professionally was the first time I got a byline in the New York Times. And it happened in 2026. I used to be a former columnist for the New York Times. I used to write about small business and social media in the You're the Boss blog of the New York Times. And whenever they really liked one of my pieces, they would publish it in the paper too. And the first time I ever,
Do you have that somewhere?
Oh, you know I have it.
Got it up on
Come
your wall?
You know I have it. But I will tell you that for me, there's been so many awards, so many things. But when I left television in 1999, there were people that would told me that I would never work in journalism again.
Really?
And I thought,
Why?
well, because, you leave the business, you
Yeah.
leave the business. And I never could have imagined that through my blog, through my books, that I would have the opportunity to be a journalist again. But I have written for many people, but writing for the New York Times those 2.5 years and getting a byline, the first time I got a byline in the New York Times, I shed a tear. I really did.
What did your son think of that? Was he old enough?
No, he was still little. He was like, 7 or 8. He didn't quite appreciate it. I think he appreciates who I am now.
Well, we were talking about that offline. If we can go and get into that.
Sure.
We have a similarity in our sons where they were both dyslexic.
Yes.
And your son just graduated from
High school. Yeah.
And my son has graduated a number of years ago, and I'm much older than you. And we were commenting about how difficult that was early on.
Oh, yeah.
The dyslexia and to see them succeed, that had to be so.
Oh, man.
What a proud moment that is.
Oh, gosh. Well, I was very fortunate because my son just finished at Delaware Valley Friends. And at their graduation, every student gets to give a speech. They don't rank kids. They don't have valedictorians and all that business. Every kid gets a minute and a half to say how they feel.
That's terrifying, especially if you're not used to that.
But you know what? They train these kids.
Do they?
Get the number one thing that school does.
See, that's unbelievable.
They give them confidence. And they got up there. And I mean, even my own son, I have to say, I sat there, I was recording him and my mouth was wide open watching him. He so confidently without notes spoke at his graduation. And he was eloquent and he was concise.
What was his speech on?
It was about his overall experience, so he thanked his wonderful family. He thanked the teachers that had poured into him, and he just talked about the evolution of how he realized who he was from the educational experience he had at that school.
We were comparing notes off mic before this, and we were talking about, and it just rung true to me that all the things you said. I said we start telling them about all the people that are dyslexic that are and you started naming names that I named to my son.
Oh, absolutely.
It was the same.
Albert Einstein, Richard Branson, Tom Cruise, Will Smith. I mean, there's an endless number of really famous people who have managed dyslexia.
But
and
without your support,
on.
or the support of my wife, that got involved in the school early when they were struggling. You can go in different paths.
Well, the thing is really
and not
scary.
get out of that.
Well, what's scary, though, is that you send your kids to school and you think that you should just trust the people that you give them to, that they're teaching them. And what you realize is that every kid doesn't learn the same. And people talk about, learning disabilities, but I never referred to my son in that way. I always said he learned differently.
Yes.
Yeah, no. His what we now think of as a disability, my son thinks of as a superpower that he has.
But it took a while to convince him of that.
It did, because public school almost beat him to death.
Yes.
I mean, he had no confidence. He had no friends. Yep. My child was in 5th grade and he was 2 grade levels behind. And I was like, what is going on? It's taking him 2.5 hours to do 3rd, 4th grade homework. This doesn't make sense. So I knew something was wrong, and the school was not incentivized to tell me what was wrong. So I had to spend my own money on neuropsychologists and Linda Mubel and getting all these outside experts to evaluate him so that I could figure out how to help him. But man, once we got him in the right learning environment in 6th grade, he has soared. And he's going to college majoring in computer science at Drexel University.
Did you ever think that would be a possibility back in those days?
Listen, no. I was trying to think, can we get out of middle school?
My son graduated from college, and we couldn't believe it because he hardly made it out of high school.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that you have to be your own advocate for your own child or your own parent. I'm going through it in the medical with my mother, and you have to be your own advocate. You got to get educated and get involved.
Well, and you have to teach your kids to advocate for what they need.
Yes.
Because I could be mama bear all I want to be, but now he's got to be able to go into his college environment and go to his professors and get what he needs. But I have 100% confidence that he can do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the second part of the podcast is first.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of things. What's something that you've always wanted to do that you haven't done, that you do for the first time, that is something that is a bucket list item? Or
So something that I want to do is learn how to speak Spanish fluently.
have you started learning?
I have.
Did you are you teaching
well,
yourself?
first of all, I started on Duolingo, and
Okay.
I have been on Duolingo for about 150 days straight. I do it every morning and every night before I go to bed. And I have 2 tutors, one in Mexico and one here in the United States that I work with once a week on pronunciation and conjugation of Spanish verbs so that I can, because I want to teach in Spanish. I have found, I went on a business trip to Panama earlier this year, and I found out there was such a need for my services in Latin America that I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to speak Spanish, and I'm going to be back.
So how you said every day. So how many minutes a day?
About 20 to 30 minutes a day. I work on it, and then twice a week I have a 1-hour instruction with my tutors.
So you have a conversation and they correct the...
Yeah, my
So
Mexican tutor will not speak English to me at all. He makes me speak to him in Spanish. It's very difficult. I feel like I'm in 3rd grade.
It's not easy.
It's not because where we say something in 2 words, they got 5 words to say something we say in 2 words, and it's not in the same order. So the adverb is after the verb, not before. And so it's very, very interesting. You have to completely think differently to speak Spanish.
Are you getting traction?
I am. Like, I feel a little confident. You know, I feel like I can read Spanish now. I just can't speak it. Like, I can read it, though, definitely.
Could you have a sentence, but you can't have a conversation?
Well, a conversation. Like, I can say, you know, ¿Cómo está? You know,
Yeah.
How are you? You know, muy bien. Very good, right? You know, but I can't, the next sentence after that, I can't.
You're lost.
I can't give it to you.
Okay. So how long do you think that process is going to be?
I've given myself until the end of the year.
Wow.
I've given myself until December.
That's pretty aggressive.
Well, I'm working on it aggressively. You know, I'm one of those people. I
So
put my mind to
do
something.
you have a plan to go teach?
Yes.
So
Yes.
where are you going to teach?
Well, we're actually going to Panama in October for like a preview meeting, but early next year we'll go back.
Is it with the government or is it with a university?
Actually, the United States government has resources to help you sell in different countries. So I have a commercial service officer here in Philadelphia that connects me with the commercial service officers in different countries around the world.
Is that who connected you to Cambodia?
No, Cambodia came from the State Department, different group of people.
Okay.
So commercial service officers are out of the Commerce Department. But believe it or not, the United States government wants to help you sell outside of the United States. And 70% of the world's GDP is not in the United States. So there's plenty of money to go get outside of the United States. And the government will help you. The state of Pennsylvania will help you too. There's lots of resources. I can give you all the details about it offline.
You don't have to, you can give it to your audience. If you're a small business woman that is looking to learn outside of the United States, you should contact Melinda. How do you get contacted? Who?
Well, I'm very easy to contact. I am Small Biz Lady on every platform.
Okay.
But if you want to actually reach me, my email is pretty simple. It's smallbizlady@gmail.com. And that's small B-I-Z lady@gmail.com.
Melinda, it's been great having you on, and I appreciate the advice that you gave my audience, and it was great getting to talk to you. And next time we speak, hopefully it'll be in Spanish.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Melinda, and thank you, audience. Till next time.